This is Reverend Sally G, and you're listening to Keeping It Real. Keeping it real. Keeping it real. Speak out the truth. Hear the testimonies. It's keeping it real with Sal. Keeping it real. Well, hey, Mark, thank you so much for coming on and doing a podcast with me. How's your day been going so far?
It's been having a really good time today so far, and I'm just blessed to be here today with you.
So those of you out there checking out Keeping It Real with Reverend Sally G, this is Mark Hedstrom. He's one of my dearest, newest friends. I got the distinct honor and pleasure of marrying him and his beautiful bride, Patricia, not too long ago. So, Mark, how do we come here today to have this conversation in this podcast?
Wow, that's a big question, but where am I today and why am I here today? I would have to say the big reason is because I'm alive and that God's kept me on this earth for 63 years and gone through a lot of things in my life, and I'm here to share where I've been and what I've gone through, and to share with people hopefully that they may catch something from this, what I have to share, and maybe take it to heart that these things that I've gone through, that God is with them also. So I'm just blessed to be here, and yeah, that's where I'm here.
Okay, so let's go back in time a bit. Let's start with your childhood. What kind of childhood did you have? How did you grow up?
I grew up in a lower middle class family in the Midwest in Chicago. Had a twin brother, I still do, and a sister, and a mom and dad. It was dysfunctional. My dad was an alcoholic and verbally abusive, if you will. Kind of living in fear as a child, not knowing when the other foot was going to go down, if you will. And it was very, very hectic. Growing up in that time frame. I also had times where I would just check out from the family, and I'd not lock myself, but put myself in a closet and listen to music just to get out of the insanity at times. And prayed. I heard of the word God as a child. I grew up in a Lutheran church, if you will. And parents, told us that we were going to go to Bible school and Sunday school, and it was there that I knew Jesus was that he died for me. Pretty basic terms as a child, not knowing everything about Jesus when you're growing up. You're pretty much just know the basic ground that Jesus died for me, and I didn't obviously. There's the phrase, do you know who Jesus is, or do you know who he is? Meaning, do you have a relationship with Jesus Christ? I didn't have that. I just knew of him growing up, and just really so low self-esteem in my family. And with my brother and I, the way I looked at it, even though it was negative attention in regards to getting beatings and stuff, I mean, very bad beatings, if you will, as a child. It was something, because I think there were times, fast forward, I think my whole life, I remember my father telling me twice that he loved me. And the one time we'll share is when I died in a car accident. And by the grace and mercy of God, I'm here. And when he saw me in the hospital and I was capable and cognizant of knowing what was going on from being on morphine for 4 weeks, he came up to me and he hugged me and he said he loved me. So it took him to the threshold to finally see that, you almost lost your son. And so it was painful. It was very painful, to be honest with you. I had no self-esteem, no drive, just really closed down and not having any self-esteem or um, through my ages of 5 through 10. Um, when I was 10 years old, my brother and I got a weight set for Christmas and a bench, and I told myself that I was tired of getting beat by my dad, and what I did is I started lifting weights 5, 7 days a week, um, every day, to try to get as strong as I could, as quick as I could, to protect myself from my father. And if you will, through bad things, good things happen. In the book of Genesis, chapter 50, verse 20, Joseph has the time, or he can have his brothers put to death. And that's when he said, "You took what the evil meant for evil, but I meant it for good," that God meant it for good. And what that did for me is I had the strength by the time I was 15 of a grown man. And I excelled in sports, and I had scholarships for football and wrestling, all over the country. And uh, I still, with that, if you will, that stature, and everyone thought I was that and then some in high school. I had no self-esteem. I didn't see myself that way. I never did. And I got involved in alcohol when I was 11. My best friend from the age of 4 was killed by a drunk driver. And I remember my dad's, I came downstairs, I woke up and he says, your buddy Timmy's in bad shape. And I didn't know what was going on. And long story short, he died like 4 days later from head injuries. And that spun me out. And the only thing I knew at the time was we didn't have counseling or anything like that. And I saw my dad drinking. So he had cases of beer down in the basement, and I would take 6 packs of Warren Budweiser and go up in the tree fort that Timmy and my brother and I built, and his brother Jeff, and I would drink warm beer, throwing up and stuff. But I didn't. That was my way of getting away from things.
So that's a pretty harsh environment to be living in, and you went into survival mode with your weightlifting and wanting to get stronger. And I can understand the wanting to dull the senses with the alcohol. You didn't mention your mom.
My mom, she's still alive today, and I love her to death. My mom um, did what she could as a mother. Obviously, she couldn't physically protect me from my dad, but I knew she loved me. And there between them, I never saw any physical violence, but I heard a lot of vocal yelling and screaming late at night, and we'd hear it through the register upstairs in her bedroom, them screaming, and we blame each other, the kids, me, my brother, my sister. You did this, and they were yelling because of that, and we put all the blame on ourselves. So she did the best she could, and I love her to death to this day. And she did what she could with what she had.
Understand. So you're in this dysfunctional environment. You're trying to do the best you can with what you know. You know of God. You clearly don't have a relationship with God. And you're rolling into high school. You said you started to get some scholarships and
Offers for football and wrestling. Yeah. My dad, my brother and I, it's kind of a funny story, but it's true. We always fought, like I said, to get attention. Well, we were in Cub Scouts, I believe it was, and we had a Cub Scout master, and we would go to the Cub Scout meetings at his house. And I remember one night my brother and I were fighting, and he couldn't stop us from fighting. And so he calls my dad up on the phone, and he says, "Paul, you better get down here and get your boys out of here because I can't handle them anymore." And so they kicked us out of Cub Scouts.
oh boy.
So my dad, I remember him, and that night he was screaming in the car, "You, blah, 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 blah. You guys want to fight?" So what he did is he brought us into I think within the next week, we're in a wrestling club at like 3rd grade, I think, or something like that.
Whoa.
So, yeah. So, I mean, both of us excelled in wrestling. And so that was kind of a bad thing into good. So, yeah.
I can relate to that. My brother was as tall as I am, but he had a good 50 pounds on me.
Wow.
Younger, but we locked up once in our whole life.
Uh-huh.
And my dad, you see how the size of my dad.
Yeah.
He's a little guy.
Yeah.
And he tried to break us up, and he couldn't. He couldn't break us up. So my brother and I are locked up. We're going at it, and all of a sudden, it felt like lightning had hit me
Uh-huh.
And I didn't realize that my dad had taken a 2x4
Oh,
and he started banging it on our backs as hard as he could to get us to stop fighting. So,
wow.
yeah, we were
Yeah.
experienced those things as well.
Yeah. Yeah. So, but it was, there was a point in time, like when I was 16, um, I had long hair, I had earrings, I was drinking and doing drugs at that time, everything and anything to or not calm, just block myself out of reality, if you will. Still no low self-esteem from growing up and not knowing that I was a good person. God wasn't in my life at that time. And I remember sitting at the dinner table one time in the summer, and I was sitting just like this, and my dad was to my left, and my sister and my mom and my brother were there. And I had an earring, and he said, "What's that in your ear?" And I said, "Oh." I didn't respond. He said, "What is that?" And I said, "It's an earring." And he told me to take it out. And I said, "I'm not going to take it out." And he said, "If you don't take it out, I'm going to pull it out of your ear." And I told him, and that I had enough. At that time, my whole childhood and everything came to a head. And I said, "If you try to take it out, I'm going to punch you in the face." Literally, I was in a rage inside. All of that time of getting beat, I had enough. And he said, "If you think you can beat me, I'll go out to the garage and I'll get a baseball bat and I'll break your kneecaps." And I said, "If you get up out of that chair, I will beat you before you get to the door." I had it. And from that moment on, there was no, and at that time, I think he got sober. I think a year after that, he went in treatment. But I think I was a sophomore in high school when that happened.
Wow.
Yeah. So it was, you remember things in your life, but I had it and I was not afraid of him anymore. All that time of working out for 6 years and everything else, I wasn't afraid of him anymore.
So after that night, did you notice a change in your relationship? Did the dynamics change at all, or was he still?
He wasn't, what I remember, I think not there long after he had gotten sober, and it changed his whole way of life. He wasn't a violent man, and kind of, if you will, if you ask me, he was a depressed person, kept to himself. I remember walking in and out of of the house, and just really not into. He wasn't that violent man anymore. He didn't have that in him. He wasn't drinking anymore, so I think that was a big thing also. And I at that time I had, if you will, uh, uh, I didn't forgive him, but I felt differently about him because I wasn't afraid of him anymore, and I was just grateful where I was at in that time period. You know,
All right, so you're big man on campus, right?
yeah,
High school,
yeah,
but it sounds like it was more of a persona than the reality of how you felt.
yes.
What types of people were you surrounding yourself with at that time?
If you will, you can probably remember the definition of a jock burnout. So, yeah, I was drinking and smoking pot, and like I said, and I'll throw it out there. I did acid, I did cocaine, hash, and I didn't. It didn't matter. Like I said, I was, and I had a high school sweetheart. We dated for 6.5 years, even after high school and stuff, but and into college. But I had no self-esteem. I was, even though I was excelling in sports, I didn't see that. I never got it. It just that from that damage from the beginning and everything else just took a toll on me. And I had my high school sweetheart and stuff like that, but it was just, everyone looked up to me, and I didn't know why. And it's, God wasn't in the picture even then. I know who he was. And actually my girlfriend was Catholic, and she had nuns coming over to her house because her parents were so into the Catholic Church. So I would go to church with her as opposed to my Lutheran church. I go to Catholic church with her on Sundays. But yeah, really no connection with God at that time. I was numbing myself, if you will. And, um, there were prayers that I said to God when I was in high school and stuff at night before I went to bed, and a lot of the things came true. I was all state in wrestling and stuff. I asked for that as a freshman, even though I had no self-esteem. But yeah, so I knew I had that relationship, if you will, minimally, but I was just lost in the drugs and alcohol and trying to find myself, if you will.
Okay, so you're in high school, you're dealing with your demons, you're battling them, succumbing in a lot of ways, but you're getting recognized, right?
Yeah.
Colleges want you.
Yes.
Okay, so you graduate high school, you're
Hmm.
still dating your high school sweetheart,
Yes.
and what happens when you transition to college?
I went to school. I went to Southern Illinois University on a wrestling scholarship, and my high school sweetheart went to Northern Illinois University, which was 6 hours away. Um, I think I was hurting inside because that was the only person I really loved in my life. That my girlfriend was the first person that I felt love from, if you will. My mom was there, but it was in a different way. And then when we moved to, went to separate universities, uh, I mean, in college, and that was a party school, and drinking and drugging, and I couldn't drink alcohol because I had to cut weight, so I'd smoke pot and I'd do cocaine, and it was just a mess. And my freshman year, trying to get through my academics, I never was strong in academics, even in high school. But I was on probation my first semester because I didn't know how to study and everything else. So I had to change my classes the second semester, and it was a blessing. My sophomore year, my roommate was a wrestler, and he was the valedictorian of his high school. So I learned how to study from him, and we lived in a mobile home. So um, just a lot of drinking. With the sport, wrestling, you're wrestling every day. It doesn't matter even if you're not in the season, you're wrestling in the springtime before. So it's wrestling, 5, 6, 7 days a week. So I was doing that and trying to get my degree. And my degree was in law enforcement, and what I wanted to do, because I wanted to help people that couldn't protect themselves because I was never protected as a child. And another thing that came out in my childhood that I'll bring up, that I was molested by someone, a female, when I was a child. And that messed me up. And I didn't realize that until later. And that was another story in itself, which made me identify, in relationships with women was twisted. As a child, is 6 and 7 years old, and stuff like that happening, you don't know what's going on because you're a child. You don't, and that's how I thought people should have relationships, is by that physical act, which was twisted. So that caused me problems later on in life, even through high school and college to a degree. So I had a lot of stuff happen to me, and in college, I knew no matter what, even though I was messed up in alcohol and drugs, that I needed to get my degree. We grew up in a low middle class family, and I had a full ride, and I knew that I couldn't afford to pay for school, so I had to, stick it out, wrestle, and I go to summer school even so I can get out in time, and so I can get my degree. And my plan was at the time to marry my high school sweetheart, and we were going to move to Arizona, and I was going to be a cop. Half of that came true, but yeah. So just really lost, and I could see people saying things about me. I was a big guy back then and everything else, and uh, I was still really lost, really involved in alcohol and drugs during that time, and God wasn't anywhere around in my life. I knew I had a kind heart inside of me. I knew that I was a kind person, and people could see that in me because I wasn't a violent person or anything. But I just, uh, with the low self esteem and everything else. So I just wanted to get through college, and I had fun times and everything else. I know people can say that with college. So there were good times, but a lot of it was involved with alcohol and drugs.
So when you look back at that time, do you see areas in your life that even though you didn't have a relationship with God, that God saved you or God helped you or God,
Oh yeah, oh yeah. I I had alcohol poisoning 5 times.
whoa,
Yeah. So, and I mean, I did everything full tilt, worked out full tilt, partied full tilt, and there was a time where I almost overdosed on cocaine on New Year's Eve. It was in the middle of winter time, and I thought my heart was going to jump out of my chest, and it was 20 below zero in Chicago, and I was home and took off my shirt, and I was walking around at 1:30 in the morning on New Year's Eve, just praying that my heart would stop beating because I thought I was going to die, literally, but that didn't stop me. I just was lost. But looking back at that, God had his hand in everything. I mean, there's no way. Uh, he was always with me looking back at it. I didn't know that at the time, but he was always with me. He was with me when I was getting beaten. He was with me when I was molested, going through hard times. I know today that he was with me. So I'm just very lucky that I made it at that time, not knowing him as my savior, if you will. So
did you finish out your collegiate years the same way you started them? Like when you graduated, were you still on the wrestling team? Were you still partying hard?
After I graduated college?
No, leading into graduating and then finally graduating.
From college?
Yes.
Was I still partying?
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, and actually, after my sophomore year, they had Title IX, and what they did with the program is they got rid of the wrestling program and they put the money into women's sports. But I signed a letter of national letter of intent to wrestle there for 4 years, so I got my junior and senior year paid for without having to wrestle, which was a blessing. I was able to graduate on time. I took courses, like I said, I did an internship at a police department this summer, and I was able to graduate in 4 years. So, yeah.
Okay, so you're no longer wrestling.
Yeah.
And that took up a lot of your time.
Yeah.
7 days a week.
Yes.
Year round.
The last 2 years.
So what are you doing with that time now in the last
During the 2 years?
Yeah.
I got into powerlifting really big. I did steroids very little, but I was involved in that a little bit. But pretty much I was very much into powerlifting and bodybuilding during that time. That's, I've always had that since I was 10. Even to this day, I still like to work out, but that was my focus, and visiting and with my girlfriend and everything else, who was still at Northern Illinois University, and partying with my friends. So that's pretty much what I did. I did my college. I knew how much I had to study to get through, and actually, I think I had like almost like a 3.2 average, which was amazing for me.
Right on.
So I got through, and I knew, like I said, there was the moments of clarity that I knew, even as messed up, alcohol poisoning and drinking and drugging, that I needed to get that degree. So there was that, if you will, part of me that had a drive to do something and accomplish something. So I did that.
So what was the first thing you did after you graduated college?
Well, we had broke up. My high school sweetheart and I broke up right before my seniors last semester. So that really threw me for a big loop. I mean, the 6.5 years was gone in a relationship that I thought that she was it and we were it, and we actually had a wedding hall rented out. We were going to get married that summer that we graduated, and all that fell apart. And I got a job as a private investigator with a local company in the Naperville, and just really lost. Going out and partying, my heart was broken, and I really didn't care, and just dated a lot of women. I mean, a lot of women, and that was part of, if you will, what happened to me as a child, not knowing what a relationship was about, with a woman and stuff. And it was a mess. And I mean, we graduated and we were at our house. My brother was at the house too. And we would go out on Fridays, and this was before cell phones. And my mom, we'd go and we'd have clothes and we'd go downtown Chicago on a Friday night. We wouldn't come home till Sunday afternoon. That lasted about 2 months, and my dad told my brother and I, he said, "You guys got to go find an apartment because you're going to kill your mother. She doesn't know where you're at." So we got an apartment together, and working and partying. My brother didn't party like I did. He didn't have any issues like that. He's got lucky. So, but Yeah, stuck out, not knowing where I'm going at the time. I was brokenhearted. Time frame around 21 to mm, yeah, about 21 to 25. And another big thing happened in that period of time. I had a child out of wedlock, and I could barely take care of myself at this point. I mean, I was really um, partying with drugs and alcohol, a lot of cocaine, and I couldn't even take care of myself, if you will, for the most part. And I didn't know how, but I tried to stay with her, the baby and the mother, for maybe about a year. And I knew that I couldn't marry her because I wasn't in love with her. So that broke up the relationship, and now we're pushing around the age of 24 ish. I think she was born when I was 23, and so I was at a crossroads, and I said, I got to get away from Chicago. My friends are partying, and maybe I have one friend here in Arizona, and I said, well, I always wanted to go there. My relatives had lived out here, and I thought, well, maybe the desert might be a good place for me to go. So I packed up my car, and when was it? Valentine's Day of 1988, I think it was, and I had a 1984 Chevy Cavalier, and I had a sign, a billboard, a cardboard thing on my back. It said, I had $700 in my pocket, and it said Phoenix or bust. So I knew one person. I didn't have a job, and I was partying like crazy. So, God had my hand the whole way too. It was just crazy. But yeah, so at the age of 25, I moved out here. So knowing one person.
Okay, so now you're here in Arizona. You're in Phoenix,
Yeah. Scottsdale.
Scottsdale
Yeah.
area.
Yeah.
But this lifestyle really hasn't changed much yet, right?
No, you run into people that will party. They call it geological transfer chart. You're going to find people to party with no matter where you're at. And
So how? I'm just curious. Are you still in contact with your child that you had out of
well,
wedlock?
she was a baby, so she couldn't talk. And so I did not have contact with her during that time, especially when I was partying. I was really lost. I mean, I was, and then I had gotten to the point I was out here, and it didn't. I mean, I see things now. I was running down the rails of hell, if you will, in double time, and that's what sped my bottom up, if you will. I was tired of waking up in different cities, not knowing how I got there, drinking and drugging. I had a job here, doing insurance claims investigations, and uh, I didn't care about anything. I even told people at work. He said, I probably won't make it past 27, and I was still working out and everything else, but I was so lost, and I was just lost, and came to the point, February 22nd, 1989. I was in my room in Phoenix, with my friend that I knew, and I had a 357 in my hand, and I put it to my head, and I sat there on my knees, and I knew I didn't know who God was, but he was the only thing that I could reach out to anymore. There was nothing else in my life was going right. And I reached out to him, and I said, God, if you don't take this from me, I'm going to take my life. And he heard my cry. He met me at my lowest point. I had nothing. I had lost my job because they fired me because I was crazy and I was drinking and stuff. And I was about a week from being homeless. My friend was about to say, you screwed up. You're out of here. And he saved my life on that day. And I told him, I said, if you can take this from me, I'll surrender my life to you for the rest of my days. And I can tell you, and I hope that people that are struggling with drugs and alcohol, or whatever situation it may be, gambling, pornography, whatever it is, that they can know that there's a God out there and that he lives. And like I said, he met me. I was 3/4 of an inch of going home, and he saved me. He had a purpose for me. I know that today. And so with that being said, the only way I knew how to stay sober was my dad was in a program. He went to treatment center back then, and So I was starting to go to meetings 2 and 3 days a week, or 2 or 3 times a day. And this in my life had turned around a lot. I could see a change and everything else, and I wanted to stay sober because I knew the opposite was dying. That was my answer. If I continue to party, I'm gonna kill myself. That was it. And 71 days into my sobriety is another day that God was with me. May 4th, 1989, I was 71 days sober. And I was with a friend of mine, and we went down to Casa Grande to visit a friend, Ron Santo Jr. I don't know if you know Ron Santo from baseball.
Yes.
His son. Yeah, he was my roommate. So he went to high school with him. So we went down to go see Ron Santo Jr. At one of the truck stops he was managing. Ron Santo Sr. was wanting him to take over 3 truck stops he had in Arizona and California. So we went down there and had lunch with him. And we were coming back, and he had a CJ5 Jeep, and it had the roll bars and a open canopy, and he had brand new Desert Dueler Mutter tires on there, and the rear tire from behind me, the tread peeled off the tires. They had like 1,000 miles on them, and my friend lost control of the Jeep, and it flipped over, and I didn't have my seatbelt on. I got thrown out, and I rolled down into a ravine, and I remember the whole thing too. If I would have hit my head, I would have been killed instantly. And I remember laying there. The impact actually tore all my clothes off. I was laying there with nothing on. And I was in the desert, and I knew I was in bad shape. I couldn't move. And what I found out from the injuries was I landed on my left side, and I crushed my left side. I collapsed my left lung. My spleen exploded in 3 pieces, which I didn't know at the time. I tore a ton of things inside of me, internal injuries. And so ambulance came out there, and people had pulled over, and I remember laying there and just, barely, I was having a hard time breathing. I didn't know my lung had collapsed. And so they shut down the Interstate 10, and they brought Life Flight in there. And so I was the first one to go. My friend got knocked out. He had a seatbelt on. So they threw me in. I remember being pulled off in the gurney, put in the Life Flight, and sitting in there, and there were a male and female nurse. They were on the Life Flight, and they were saying, "Hang in there. We're going into Good Samaritan," which was about 60 miles away. And I remember sitting in the gurney, and I had my feet up, and I had my hands on my knees, and I was having a hard time breathing and stuff. They had me on oxygen, and they kept on telling me, "Hang in there. We're almost there." And I remember the female nurse saying it one last time. She said, "We're almost there. Hang in there." And I died. Before it happened, I looked down at my hands, and I could see from my knuckles to my fingertips on both of my hands, they were solid purple. And what that was is my spleen that exploded that I didn't know. I was pumping blood into my body cavity, and literally I bled out. And God saved me 71 days earlier from pulling a trigger on my head and killing myself. And now I'm in this just accident that happened, and I died. And this is part of my testimony because it's true. And people need to know that God lives. And when I died, I didn't see any white lights. I remember I was in a place where you have children that you love dearly, your daughter you love more than anything. I can tell you that when I died, I knew I was in his presence because I felt so much love, warmth, joy, and peace that it surpasses our understanding on this earth. And I knew I was in his presence. And in his spirit, he said to me, "Mark, I love you. I'll never leave you, and you're not going to die." And so I was in Good Samaritan for, I think, 5 weeks, and they would call my parents up and say, "You might want to come back. We're going to do another surgery. We don't think he's going to make it through here," for like 3 weeks. And the doctors told my mom and dad, they said, "There's no real reason he should be here. There's none." And God had a purpose. To this day, I try to figure out why that happened. It was an accident, but it is what it is. So what happened was, I got out of that May 4th. I got out of the hospital in June sometime. I went directly from the hospital back to Chicago because I had feeding tubes in my stomach still and second-degree burns from road rash and crushed ribs and stuff. So my parents had to take care of me. back in Chicago. And even then, I wanted to stay sober. I couldn't go to the meetings, so I called up the Yellow Pages back then, and I go and look up a local thing, and I say, hey, this is my situation. I had people come to my house, and we talk AA at the dinner table. I had a guy, Charlie Smith, came over every day, great guy, and he would come over there just to be with me and to share with me, and I knew God then. If you will, I was saved on February 22nd of 89 because I cried out to him. And then he saved me, I knew. And like I said, from that period between my from almost killing myself to the car accident, my focus was on God and staying sober. And I didn't read the Bible. I knew John 3:16, if you will, at that time. I still didn't know it. And this is the whole year of 89, if you will, from February, and I'm into May and June now. But God's grace, if you will, because I had done so many drugs, alcohol, womenizing, everything. My whole life, my friends would come over and visit me at my house, my parents' house. And I'd tell them I'm going to be a cop. And they would laugh at me and say, "You're kidding me? You did this, this, and this." But my point being in this whole matter is God's grace wiped out all of my thoughts of what I did before. If you were to look at it face value and you didn't, if you will, the God didn't give me that grace, I would think, well, God, I did so much cocaine in my life. I did so much pot. I did this, this, and this, that you have to go hit a polygraph test when you go in the police department. I didn't have that fear. It was gone. It was like God put a no vacancy sign on my head for Satan. And there was not even a snapshot or a snap of a finger that I feared not. It was gone. I knew that I was going to be a cop, and that was God's purpose for me. So I went through and I came back here in September of 89 and started applying for, I think, Gilbert, Mesa, Phoenix. And even before that, I had a lawsuit from the tire company, but I got a small chunk of money. And this is another thing about my walk with God. I had a small chunk of money, but I didn't have a job or anything. And I was all this happened, and I'm here back in Phoenix. I knew I needed a job, so I applied. I got a job with Department of Corrections. And so in the meantime, I was still applying for these other police jobs and stuff like that, Phoenix, Mesa, and Gilbert. And I wasn't afraid. And what I signed up for DOC, I was going to go to, what is it up there, northeast Arizona. What's that? Starts with a W. There's a town, there's a prison up there anyway, Winslow. So I was going to go to Winslow, and I still didn't know anything about the police job. So I just let God have it. It was like I was a baby Christian. I didn't know the Bible, but I knew God was going to take care of me no matter what.
Amen to that.
And I didn't have any fear, so I took this job, and I'm down at the police down here in Tucson, where they had the academy. And the third day, the commander came in my bunk room with my other guy that was staying with me, and he says, "You got a phone call downstairs." So I went down there, and it was the recruiting officer from Phoenix. He says, "Well, I can't tell you have a job, but if you come down here tomorrow, there's a pretty good chance that you might be a Phoenix officer. Do you want that?" I said, "Absolutely." So I went to the commander and I said, "I appreciate your time and everything else for being here, but, I told him, I said, God has a plan for me to be a police officer." And so I left that, having faith the whole time, not knowing the Bible or anything, but I knew God was in control, and it was just probably the most amazing year of my whole life, 1989. So I came back to Phoenix, and I went to the thing. They hired me the next day, and I started the academy January 2nd of 90. So with Phoenix PD.
So a lot to unpack there.
Oh yeah.
So you come to Christ in a moment of desperation, realizing that He was the only answer, the only solution.
Yes.
With the gun to your head, and now through God's saving grace, in that moment, you're able to stay sober. You have this 71-day run,
Yes.
and then this accident happens.
Yes.
And I got to tell you, it's amazing that you are here today by the grace of God with everything you described. What happened to you? Uh, how long were you clinically dead for?
Probably around between 8 and 10 minutes, and you would think that you would have brain damage, but the only thing I can say is God, just God, you know. So
So you suffer this massive accident. You're not even off the helicopter when you pass, right?
no, yeah, we're still in flight.
Still in
Yeah,
flight.
yeah,
And then I just want to go to that moment. You said no lights,
no.
but you felt comfort and
War-
peace and warmth.
Warmth, joy, peace, and love that surpasses the love that you can have from any individual on this earth. That doesn't. It's not even the same ballpark. You can't. So I know when I go home, but yeah, I knew even I was dead, but I knew I was with him because, and I was walked 71 days not knowing John 3:16, but I was gone. I was before him, if you will. So
And then he spoke to you and you heard him
in
clearly.
his words, in his spirit, he said, Mark, I love you. I'll never leave you. You're not going to die. So
How long did it take you to rehab to the point where you were able to start going back to work and thinking about becoming a cop and then doing the training with corrections down in Tucson? How long of a period of time was that
middle
for
of
you?
June, I got out of the hospital. I flew directly to Chicago. I was recovering in Chicago, and I came back here maybe beginning of September. I went through the police academy with broken ribs still because I crushed the whole left side. So, but that's just God. That's God. So, anyways, but from June until September, and then I started applying for these departments and DOC, Department of Corrections.
Okay, so you get out of the hospital, you got to go back to Chicago, you're with your parents,
Yes.
and you're reaching out for help for make sure you don't succumb to addiction again.
Mm-hmm.
Where's God in all this in your personal life at this point?
Again, I didn't open the Bible up at that time, but if you will, I had a spiritual connection with him, and I knew who he was. Like I said, I didn't know the Bible, and that's a big thing. Like they talk about, you know, in the Bible, it says with childlike faith and not knowing, to understand the whole Bible. It was the term having faith of a mustard seed. I didn't know the Bible. But I had that faith. I had that mustard seed, and God knew it. I surrendered everything to him when I had a gun to my head, and he knew it better than I did. He knows everything. He knew that I meant that I was his and that Satan couldn't have me. God said no, and he had a plan for me before the beginning of time. I thank God for that and carry me through that, So with that being said, and experiencing that near suicide and then the accident and getting sober and seeing the goodness of what God had, I saw my life turning around thinking that I don't need to live this addicted life anymore. I don't need those people. I need God, and I need, like I said, when I went, I had people come AA, staying sober. So that was my only way to stay sober, if you will. I didn't want to drink anyway, but I would do anything to stay sober. So to serve his purpose, because I told him that I wouldn't, if you'd save my life, I'm yours. So it was a thought just inside of me that really wanted to do good, there, and I can go through, even farther going into the testing process. It's like a 3 or 4 month period. You go through like 7 or 8 different tests, written tests, psychological tests, physical tests, polygraph, and all those things, and my friends would ask me, even when I had to go in and take the polygraph test. And so again, that grace was with me. I had no, and they would ask me a question on the test, do you drink alcohol? No, I don't. And I wasn't. I stopped. I was sober 11 months, I think, right around there. Yeah. So, and then they went on to the drug section and stuff. And I went through the whole thing. They said, well, you did great on everything, but we're going to go back on the drug section here. And, we just have some questions on it. And I said, okay. So they left the room. They came back in, hooked me back up. And then they went through the program again, asking me questions. And he says, okay, you did great. So I can refer to, if you will, in the Bible, there's quite a few characters in there, if you will. Saul, we can refer to him as persecuting Christians. And God, took him off his horse on the way to Damascus and asked him why he's persecuting him. Well, I was on a train, silver bullet to hell, and I had to submit and surrender myself to God. Once I did, those things that of my past, if you will, like he says, he doesn't think of them anymore. And he knew my purpose on earth. And one of them was to be a cop. So, and that's how I got through the polygraph test.
That's an excellent example and explanation of the transformational life, the new life you receive when you accept Jesus Christ. The old life is gone.
Yes.
And it was gone in such a way that you had such conviction through the Holy Spirit and a gift from God that you were able to take those polygraphs.
Yes.
And pass them.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing.
It's God.
Amen to that.
Yeah. So
now you're starting to really get your life on track.
Yes.
An ambition of yours from way back when is starting to come true.
Yes.
What type of people do you have in your life right now? Are you a lone gun, or are you starting to surround yourself with some people?
I had met a girl. Actually, she became my first wife. I met her in AA, and she didn't know who God was, but the reason she fell in love with me is because she saw Jesus in my life, and getting out and graduating from the academy and everything else, and was just amazing. I mean, graduated in May, I think, of 90. I think it was a 4-month or late April. But so I was going to meetings with her. I had friends in the program. I was going to the academy 5 days a week, and 5 days. I mean, my academy, God was first, obviously, and he was getting me through the academy. And I had to polish my leather at the end of the night, rewrite my notes for the next day. Everything had to be perfect, in writing and everything. So you had to keep up with everything. And, I was not thinking of, my ribs were hurting me and stuff like that, but none of that stuff bothered me. I was so laser focused on doing God's will. And I knew that I wanted to be a cop. And I knew at that time that was my purpose, for him and on this earth, to become a cop.
So you made a handful of references to not knowing the Bible.
Yes.
During this part of your journey. And for contextual understanding to people checking out your podcast here with us, the Bible is our manual.
Yes, it is.
Right? It is the living word of God.
Absolutely.
And it's not like a textbook. It's not like a book of fiction. You can't go from page 1 to the last page and just assume and consume knowledge. You actually gain wisdom, which is different.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And so it's a journey. That Bible is a journey with you.
Absolutely.
And so what you get out of it the first few years of your walk, and I'm not even necessarily saying you have to read it from cover to cover, will be different than in year 2, in year 3, in year 10, in year 20.
Yes.
Because as you get closer to the Heavenly Father through the gift of the Holy Spirit, he allows you to have revelation of truth.
Correct.
Right? So,
absolutely.
So people sometimes get a misunderstanding of how things work walking with the Lord. So yes, you have to go to his living word. You have to be committed to that.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah. I found out when, the Bible is the living word and the truth. And I found out in my life that if I don't have that Bible and I don't have that relationship with Christ, then the bad thing happens. I start to take over and I start to do things or try to do things myself. And I find out time and time again that, even now, that's like 35 years ago, 40 years ago that I started. But I know that when I'm trying to do something myself and try to control a situation that was never meant to be. It was always in my life today. I ask God, he's in my life all day long. He's my best friend. And things come up. God, take this from me, or what should I do, Lord? He knows he's perfect, and he won't lie. He won't leave you, no matter where you're at, and I, I have some dark things even that I haven't shared with you today, even after this, which is amazing, but it's just God's grace and mercy. But yeah, having the word is important, and knowing the word. And most importantly, he wants a relationship with you. He died for that,
Truth.
and yeah. So
I'm gonna leave a cliffhanger question here, because believe it or not, we've gone an hour.
wow,
It's gone by so fast.
I told
and
you.
we definitely have part 2 here. So the question I'm gonna end this episode with is this to you, Mark. You're in this really good place with the Lord.
Yes.
Okay, you're finally where you want to be, where you believe God wants you to be.
Yes.
The strife, the attacks, the struggle, when they start to hit after being glorified through the Lord, how did you handle those things? And that's something we'll get back to in part 2.
Okay.
You can start sharing with those first real heavy hits from Satan.
Oh my.
Right?
Yeah.
Because they were coming.
Oh yeah.
You didn't know they were coming, but they were coming.
Oh yeah. 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 So.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so part 2, we'll answer that question and then pick up in Mark's amazing testimony, because there's so much more to share here. This man has a beautiful story, and I can't wait to see how the rest of this book plays out for him in his life. He's just an amazing man of God, amazing testimony. I know about some stories that are coming up in the next episode when we continue this conversation. So stay tuned to part 2 with Mark Hedstrom.
Great.
Hey, thanks for checking out Keeping It Real with Reverend Sally G. I would like you to check us out on all the different platforms for more great content.